Hey guys. So today we're going to be working on the Lagun FT-1 vertical mill. We're going to be doing some work specifically on the lubrication system. Since I last did a video on this mill, I haven't done a whole lot to it. I did mount the touch DRO tablet up there. You can kind of see there. I also added a tachometer input so that when I turn the machine on, you can see the tach lights up here. What I ended up doing is I super glued a very small magnet to one of the pulleys on the spindle, and I added a Hall effect sensor and mounted it right where like the belt guard is. I'll show you that in a moment. So we're looking right there. Super low tech. It was really easy to do. It cost all of like maybe $5 in parts and a little bit of time just to design and 3D print this little bracket here. Yeah, so it works out pretty well. And as a reminder for anybody unfamiliar with Touch DRO or has never heard of it, it's a tablet-based computer that keeps track of the XY position of the table and Z position of the table and the spindle RPM, among other things. I'm greatly oversimplifying it. So when I turn these hand dials, you can see I'm moving the Y-axis, I'm moving the X, right there. You can see it starts to beep when you approach 0. And if I get the hand crank for the Z, move that up, see that changes too. So it makes life a lot easier when using a milling machine. You don't have to keep track of how many turns on the hand dial that you've done. You don't have to worry about backlash or anything like that. So it makes milling a lot easier. I'm actually going to add one to my lathe. I'll probably do that in a future video. So, all right, enough about that. Let's talk about why we're here. We are here because of that guy down there. So if you saw my first video on this mill, you might recall that I had issues with this lubrication pump since day one. When I bought this thing, this handle, the plunger got stuck and this handle basically does nothing. And the remedy is to take the pump apart, free up the handle, and put it back together and hope it doesn't happen again. It's happened like 3 or 4 times already. I'm tired of it. I did contact Lagun about a replacement pump, and they wanted, I think, about $1,400 for a pump, and it was actually just they would have sent a Chinese one. So I simply found out what pump they would have shipped me. Found it on eBay. It's a YML8. I think there's a couple different variations of this, but they're all pretty much the same. I have done some research and talked to a couple vendors. These pumps tend to last. They're pretty good. So what we're going to do is not only are we going to replace the pump, we are also going to take the table off and redo some of the lubrication lines, because any lines that are on here are, things from '85, so those lines are pretty old. Some of them are plastic. Some of them, I think some of them might be copper as well. So we're going to take the table off and go through the whole lubrication system as we mount the new pump and just make sure everything is working okay. Before we get into it, I just want to be super clear with everybody. I have never done this before. We're going to be figuring this out together. You may see me screw up. You may see me make mistakes. You may be screaming at me saying, "Joe, why are you doing that?" Sorry. Again, I don't know this machine that well. I've never taken it apart, so we're going to figure this out together. Now this machine has, is it a 42-inch table? 44-inch table. My research indicates it weighs a couple hundred pounds, so the recommended way to remove this table after you get it to the disassembled state and you can slide it off is basically to just slide it onto a table. So I have a wheeled cart that I'm going to try and put on this side of the table, and we can control the height of the table with the Z-axis crank. So my hope is that we could just push from that side and just slide it all the way onto the table, a wood table, undamaged. So let's give that a shot. But first, let's remove the vise. Forgotten how heavy this vise was. It's so much fun to move. There we go. Oh boy, I put put a piece of scrap wood on the table over here already. Oh man, that thing's got some gravity to it. Let's start on the left side. Let's remove the dial, or not the handle. I guess we're gonna need something to hang on to that. Maybe let me get an impact. Actually, wait, no, we don't need one. Forgot this is one of those safety handles you got to push in. There we go. So now this should just come off. Oh, quit your whining. I'm going to keep track of what comes off what side, just because I'm not really sure how much it matters, if at all. Okay. This is our right crank handle. I'm going to put this on the right side of the, oh wait, that's the left side. What am I saying? I'm going to put that on the left side of the vise, just so we keep track of it. This is what things look like when you take that crank handle off. There's a little key here, assuming we don't want to lose that. Take this lock nut off, and I think this should just slide off like that. Cool. Again, it's going to go on the left side of the vise. Notice there's also a bunch of shims on this side too. I think you definitely want to keep track of what side those come off of. So I'm going to put these over on the left side too. Continuing along, I'm going to take out these 3 4mm Allen screws. I'm not sure if I need to or not, but it looks like we do, because I'm not sure how, well, maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. There's one on the bottom here. Not terribly tight. There's one. Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not really sure on that one. Now let's take off, I think these are they 6? Yeah, 6mm bolts that hold this bearing bracket on. Everybody says this is just like a Bridgeport, and it's a clone, Bridgeport clone, and it may look similar to a Bridgeport, but this thing is definitely not a Bridgeport. Like these bearing brackets I'm taking off right now, these are different. Which makes things, adding accessories, like for example an X-axis power feed. It's got to be specific to the Lagun. I'm told that this thing is actually beefier than a Bridgeport, but I don't have one side by side to do a comparison. I did use Bridgeports about 20 years ago in school though. Get a glove on. I don't think there's anything holding it. Maybe to whack it with a mallet or something. Let's try the rubber mallet persuader. I do see these roll pins here, so maybe they're acting like as locator pins. There we go. Starting to see some movement. See if I have enough movement to get something behind here to pry with. Not yet. More tapping. Jeez, those roll pins are no joke. You get the idea. Back and forth, tappy, tap, tap. One thing I just noticed is this whole collar here moves. So you can take that off with a pry bar. It goes back on like that with this facing inward. And then there's this thing here. This thing was like, yeah, so that was on there. This was on there first with that, I don't know what you call that, that step on the inside. We don't want to lose this key either. We go set this on the left side of the vise. You can see how everything looks. There's what looks like a ball bearing in there that the lead screw turns on. I don't see anything else holding it, so I think it's just those roll pins. Jamming screwdrivers down in these grooves seems to be helping a bit. The pins seem to be starting to walk out now. I think that's because they're really close to the roll pins themselves, which is probably allowing them to exert more force on them, or it could just be an illusion. I think I'm going to switch to the other side. This one just continues to fight me. Let me see if I run into the same problems on the other side. Hopefully you guys can see this. So far it's just the same as the other side. There's a key in here as well. This key is loose, I think. Maybe not. I don't see any shims on this side unless they're stuck to something. I also don't see a retaining plate here like we saw on the other side. Interesting. I do see roll pins on this side too. Amazing how much holding power roll pin has, isn't it? Let's see if we can tap this side off. This does seem to be fighting a bit less. Or it could just be an illusion. No, it definitely seems to be fighting less. I can walk this thing off, which I couldn't do on the other side. At least I seem to be walking it off. We can tap on the bottom. Got a nice space going. Made some progress off camera. I was able to tappy tap tap this bearing plate off. It was actually not that difficult to remove. I was thinking that it was these roll pins that were retaining it, but it was actually the fit on between the bearing and the lead screw here that was holding it on. And that's actually what's holding it on the other side, because now that this bearing plate is off, look at the other side. I was able to just give the table a little bit of a push and separate this. So now those roll pins aren't holding anything, but it's really just held on by, I guess, the interference fit between that bearing inner race and the lead screw. I don't think I need to really be too concerned about that. I think I could just unscrew the lead screw and take it out as is and just leave it like that, not risk damaging anything. So let's unscrew the lead screw, and then we can get that out of the way and take the table off. So it should just be a simple matter of turning this thing. And this is a very, very fragile and very precise piece here, so you don't want to damage this lead screw. It's very expensive to replace. It's probably a couple $1,000s by itself. So I'm going to try my best not to drop it on the floor. Starting to see the Acme threads here. This is a great opportunity to clean the lead screw too. It's kind of difficult to clean when the table is in the way. And this thing has been sitting out in the open for, I guess almost 40 years. So there are parts of it that are pretty grimy. So I'll probably take a piece of rope and some solvent and just clean it real nice. You can see there's some varnish in the thread. Maybe now you can see. So far, it does seem to be in pretty good shape, though, which is a relief because, like I said, it's expensive. We'll check near the center, though, because there doesn't seem to be, typically the extremes of the lead screw don't wear because you don't really move the table to its extremes too much. And normally the center is the most worn, if it's worn at all. So we'll get a better idea once we get closer to the center. Pretty tedious doing this. Turns out there's something on that side of the lead screw that's going to prevent it from going through the nut. So we'll have to thread this all the way back and remove that thing. It looks like there's a set screw that holds it on. I'm not really sure what it's for. But once I get this all threaded back in, I'll show you guys. And that is what we're dealing with. There's that big block there. It looks like it serves as a stop of some kind, but I'm not really sure why. Again, full reminder, I don't know what I'm doing, so if someone knows what this thing is for or why it's there, feel free to chime in. Let's see if we can take it off, because it's in our way. Of course, we go from a 4 to a 6, and that happens to be a 5mm. So let's grab the 5mm out of the toolbox. And let's see if that loosening that helps us at all. There's two Allen bolts that hold it on, or at least to clamp it on. And they are on there. Good. Wow. 1. 2. Okay, so that thing is loose now. Can we just slide? Oh, cool. So we can just slide this thing off. Oh, I see. Is this like a lead screw extension? Hope I didn't just create a problem for myself. That's what it is. That goes on the right side, so we'll put it to the right side of the vise. Okay, let's unscrew this lead screw for the second time. Or is it again for the second time? I don't know. You get the idea. Just turn it to the left until it comes out. We gotta be getting close, I hope. We're just about there. I can feel it. There we go. There's our lead screw. Very carefully. Now all we need to do is disconnect our DRO scale on the x-axis, lower the table, and in theory, slide it off. I think we're getting ready. I got the DRO scale disconnected. Got the table here. This crank might hit this table, we'll see. Nope, we should be good. So we're going to lower the Z. Until it probably just about touches. Like maybe something like that. Probably just about touching there. Let's push our table over and see what happens. Oh man, I think I have to take this whole DRO scale off right now. I just took the piece that bolts the table. Let me take the whole thing off. Okay, I took that scale completely off. Let's give the table a nudge and see what happens. We need to drop it a little bit. Yeah, I think we do. Maybe not that much. Got to take this stop off, I guess. It's a 13 millimeter. Loosen it up and slide it out. I think we will have to drop the table a bit there. Maybe not. See if I can lift and pull. Maybe not. That thing's heavy. I do see an air gap under the table. There we go. That works. Let me drop this thing a little bit. Jeez. I think that kind of works. Got it. Who knows if we'll ever get it back on. Let's get the table out of the way. Get you guys out of the way. Here's our first look at the lubrication system. So this should be our lead screw nut in there that controls the XY travel. You can see the ways right here. You can see all the original scraping. Still looks really nice on both sides. And you can see all these little tubes here that distribute oil to the various oiling points in the machine. And I see a huge puddle down there. I'm not sure if that's because one of these tubes is leaking or if I've just been over oiling or what. So I think the next step is going to be to install the new pump so we can see where oil is coming out. I want to see if there's any leaks here. I want to see if oil is coming out here and here. I mean, it looks like it is because there's plenty of oil in these ways, but that's what we got to check next. Let's get this pump out of here. A couple of 5 millimeter screws into the casting. And before I went all crazy here and decided to do this work, I did reach out to the manufacturer of this pump. They are still around, believe it or not, and they never got back to me. They don't seem to care. I mean, I get it. It's a small pump. I'm one guy instead of, you know, some kind of commercial customer that has 50 of these machines, but a little disappointing nonetheless. I mean, there's probably a reason why Lagun themselves are not replacing this pump with this pump. And maybe that's the reason. Make sure you drop your Allen wrench, that's important. There we go. She's off. Okay, let's unscrew our fittings here. could tell this elbow here is even loose because it rotated. Okay, it doesn't want to come out of there. Let's see if this one behaves better. Just using an 8mm wrench on them. And of course, this pump failed when it was full of oil. They never fail empty. One. Come on, there we go. Two. All right, pump's out of the way. And it's still leaking. As one would expect, the bolt pattern on the new pump is different than the old, so we'll have to make new mounting holes. But drilling and tapping cast iron isn't all that difficult. I want to hook this thing up and see what leaks, if anything. So I'm just taking the old hoses and screwing them into the new pump. This is this pump has got the same, in theory, got the same type fittings as the old, so I should be able to do this. Get my wrench, tighten those up. We'll throw some oil in there and see what happens. This plastic hose honestly doesn't really seem to be in terrible shape. I was expecting much worse. Let me take some oil from the old pump, dump it in there, and we'll see what happens. All right, here's the Vactra number 2 that came out of the old pump. It's pretty clean. At least not whatnot. Let's dump it in here. Let's see if this thing works. This pump wasn't that expensive. It was maybe like 60 bucks or so, if I recall. Give it a couple of pumps and see what happens. Got a leak down here. Do see some oil moving around. And also some air bubbles. I think we don't have enough oil in this thing. Seems like it's a bigger pump. Let me get the jug of Vactra and load this thing up a little bit more. Ta-da! This gallon is mostly empty. That's plenty. That shows up on the sight glass. Take 2. Show you guys where it's coming. All right, keep your eye out. We got oil coming up here and here, that's good. I honestly don't see any leaks. Except right there. And down here. All right, so we got some stuff we got to deal with. But the pump works. Let's get that mounted. And then we'll tackle some of the plumbing. The next day, took some time to clean things up a little bit. I've determined that for this portion of the mill, oil comes up through this tube right here, goes into this distribution block. There's a tube that comes out of here and goes into here, which feeds this hole and a hole on the gib. And these tubes just like pull right out. They're not like, there's not a fitting in there. So it's just like a friction fit. There's another tube that comes out and goes down and I think hits the way for the y-axis. Then we have another tube that comes over here, over to this distribution block here, which feeds the way, the y-way on this side. It feeds this x-way here, also feeds this lead screw. And finally, this lead screw nut rather. Finally, we have a tube that comes out down here and goes out and feeds the y-axis lead screw. So this one tube feeds the entire X and Y axis, and the Z, I think, is fed from the other exit tube on the pump on the other side. I don't have the pump like super securely fast, it's just held in by one bolt at the moment, but I figured we could get some of these plumbing lines redone. I don't think there's very many leaks, to be honest with you. They actually look like they're in pretty good shape, so I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to mess with them, but I don't want to have to remove that table again, so I think I might at least redo some of them. So what I plan on doing is using this copper. Let me see if I can dig up the size. It was on the packaging. Let's see. It is refrigeration tubing 4mm. Got this on Amazon. And I plan to use these 4mm compression fittings that you can buy separately. I'll leave links in the description as I usually do. I'll probably start, maybe I'll start on this far side here and redo this line here. I don't know. I'll kind of figure that out as I go. I'm not going to film all that because if you got this far, you know how to do compression fittings. I'm not going to bore you with that. Maybe I'll do one side of desk, but I'll show you the end result though. All right, I think I got everything done here. It's not my finest copper work ever. It's going to be hidden by the table, so I didn't worry too much about aesthetics, but bent a line to come up into this little distribution block here. Took a line out of the middle, going up to this way. Took a line coming in here, going to that way. This red sealant that you see is Durco. I wasn't really sure what sealant to use. I could have very well used the wrong one, but this is the stuff that I use on chainsaws and two-strokes when I split the case. It's Durco HT. Seems to be sealing. I don't know, like I said, if it's the right product, but we know it's oil and gas resistant just because it's used on two-stroke engines. And like I said, seems to be holding up okay. Then I took a line coming from this block around to here to go down to the y-axis lead screw, and a line coming over here to go to this way here. And also I kept this line right here because the copper didn't want to really seem to fit into this lead screw nut housing, and I didn't really want to mess with it. It seems to be working, it's not leaking, so kind of one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it moments. So like I said, this is still that factory plastic line. Hopefully it continues to hold up because I don't really have a line that fits in there right now. I'd have to figure something out. So anyway, that's that. All the lines have been replaced with copper. Now I'm going to finish securely mounting the pump. Right now there's just one screw holding it in. Then we'll get the table bolted back on. Did I really just say bolted? We're not bolting the table on. You know what I mean. Okay, I got the pump mounted with 4 screws. Had to drill 4 new holes because things just weren't lining up right. I didn't have a transfer punch the same size as these screws, so I made one out of an old punch that I had here. I just chucked this on the the drill, and spun this on the bench grinder until I ground it down and centered a little point up here, and it worked out pretty well. Didn't really have any issues lining things up. So that worked for me. Your mileage may vary. Okay, I got the table gib adjuster all cleaned up. Hit that with some brake cleaner. Still in really nice shape like everything else in this mill. And that just slides back in here. And there's a little groove right here that fits on that screw. I'll get you guys in there a little bit closer so you can see. Yep. Right, so that groove is right there. I'm going to try to back off this gib adjuster just a bit. Maybe. Jesus, no, maybe not. Let's try that again for the second time. Bigger screwdriver this time. Oh, man, that is on there good. No, I don't want to break it. I was hoping to loosen up the gib adjuster just a little bit to give the table some wiggle room to slide back in place, but maybe we won't need it. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if this thing's going to cooperate. I have my doubts. Oh, maybe it will. It's kind of sliding on right now. That was way easier than I expected. I expected a fight. Let's see. She's sliding on. Gib adjuster still in place. That's good. Stuck on something. Let me work at this a little bit. Probably need to adjust the height a little bit. That was it. Just had to raise the height a little bit. And then we just glide the thing on. There we go. Go. Our table's on. That really wasn't that bad at all. Next step is to put our lead screw back in. Okay, I got the lead screw all lubricated up. Let's see if we can get this thing threaded back in there. Hopefully all the copper lines that I put in there aren't in the way. Doesn't seem like they are. I'm just going to thread this in little by little. Got the lead screw in far enough just to get this end plate in there. And got these screws threading on. I wanted to do this to support it because I didn't want the nut in the center supporting that big heavy lead screw that was balancing in the nut. It just didn't seem like a good idea. So what this is doing is as I turn the lead screw, it's drawing the table closer and closer. We can probably just draw it in the rest of the way with these screws. There we go. Got this side all put back together. It's a bit easier to turn the table with the crank rather than trying to grasp the lead screw by hand. You may notice that there's a piece missing here. I deliberately took that off because it used to be a refrigerator behind me. And anytime anybody went into the fridge, they'd stab their backs with the hand crank, plastic hand crank. So I just took it off. I don't really turn the lead screw from this side too often anyway, except for right now. Okay, so table's almost centered. And if you recall, this other side had this lead screw extension shaft thingy that we need to install. Oh boy. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to install it on here first. And then we can set the correct length on the lead screw once we bolt this thing up. I used a chainsaw spark plug socket to put around this shaft and tap on the inner race of that bearing just so we could get things on without smashing it. So let's loosen this clamp a little bit. And then we can bolt on this side here. I can feel it engaging with the lead screw. A couple of bolts here just to set it in place. Take a peek underneath just to make sure we really are engaged with the lead screw. That's good. Just tap this on. What do they say? Easy peasy lemon squeezy? I've tightened this bracket down. I'm going to go to the other side, make sure I can still turn the lead screw freely. Nothing's bound up. Everything seems fine. So now I'm going to tighten that clamp that secures this extension shaft to the actual lead screw itself. I'll do that underneath. Okay, we are clamped on. Everything still turns nice and freely. Now we'll put the right-hand side back on. And since I didn't really show you the left, I'll show you the right. Let me actually just clean this off with some brake cleaner. It's a bit better. Actually, let's put a little bit of oil on this. Just using whey oil. This side did not have any shims. And we might actually need to loosen things up a little bit because I see that there's some rubbing going on. That's probably why it doesn't have any shims, because the clearance is set with that spacer. Why does that thing just keep on turning and turning? Yeah, we'll need to back that off a little bit below and just kick that out a bit. So I tried to make minor adjustments to this side. I just couldn't get this wheel here to fit without rubbing. And there were, I don't know if you remember, there were no shims on this side, but I ordered several sets of shims from McMaster-Carr. The shims are, let me get the packages. They are, let's see, 35, or I thought they were 32. No, 35 by 45. So 35 millimeter ID, 45 millimeter OD. So here's like one pack that I ordered, and these are 0.5 millimeter thicknesses. So I just stacked a couple of these up, and now I got plenty of clearance here. So again, I'm not really sure why I had to do that, because there didn't seem to be any shims there when I took it apart, but that seemed to work. And these are the shims I took out of the other side. These are a little bit thinner. So I basically just used those half millimeter shims on the left side of the mill too, as well as here. Might as well put everything back together while I got you guys. That doesn't seem right, does it? No thread sticking out there. Okay, so to fix that problem, I just took out this spacer that was deep inside there. I probably should have paid a little bit better attention when I was taking this thing apart. I don't remember having these issues or seeing any shims on this side, so it's a little weird that I now need shims, but whatever, you know, it works. Let's snug this nut down. There we go. I think that'll do it. All right, folks, I think that'll just about do it. We got our new lube pump down there. That's working very nicely. We got our new copper lines underneath the table here. Those are all working nicely. Got all the side gear, the handles and everything cleaned up and re-shimmed. So I think this mill's good to fight another day. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please subscribe. Stay safe. Thanks for watching, everybody. And next, stay tuned for installing touch DRO on that Precision Matthews lathe.